What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. In this video we are going to be discussing the Destruction Warlock. This is going to be going from patch 5.2 into 5.3, and what you can expect, the stat priorities, the gems, the talents, the glyphs, and a quick rotation guide. And in order to do this better, I have brought in personal friend of the channel. You guys know him as Akky. He's been around. He plays Warlock in a very competitive raiding environment. He's had several top world parses in different fights. Very, very talented Warlock. Akky, what's up, buddy?
What's up, my man? Thanks for having me again.
Yep, and today, Akky, I just got my level 90 my lock to level 90, and I'm gonna start playing Destro to start with.
Good
And
choice.
yeah, well, I wanted to do a guide because it seems to be a pretty straightforward class, but I've only really saw one other guide that was kind of comprehensive. I feel like I missed a couple of things, so I kind of wanted to give people a brief rundown because the information that we were talking about when I hit 90 and you kind of versed me in the class, I thought would be a good thing to just go over as a quick guide.
Sure, sounds good.
So let's start with stat priority. Typically, I know that, at least from what I've understood, is it's int above all else, obviously, then hit to cap. And then your secondary stats are all pretty much equal. Kind of go into those a little bit.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Int obviously is going to be your strongest one. Your next is going to be Hit. Obviously, you don't want any of these spells missing. If you miss a Chaos spell, that's that's a huge DPS loss. And then in terms of your sort of primary secondary stat, it's an iffy one. Like, there's no real sort of straight, clear-cut way to do it. You've got certain ways you can play Destro. You can either go for a very heavy haste build, or you can go for a mastery build, and they both have their sort of pros and cons.
Right.
And either one works just as well as each other. There's no, this one does X amount more DPS than going this way. They'll both do, very competitive numbers, and there may be like a 1 to 2k difference depending on your gear level and that sort of thing. So,
Right. And starting out, the only thing I really saw going into that was I seemed to favor the mastery build, but again, that was my
yeah.
personal preference.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly the thing. You've got two choices. So if you want to go, for the typical sort of destruction where you want to see those big crits from your chaos bolts and anything that sort of spins your embers, or the shadow burn is another one. You're going to go for mastery because your mastery is going to increase that damage whenever you spend an ember on either of those abilities. Otherwise, if you go haste, basically the difference is the trade-off is you get a lot more incinerates or a lot more ember generating spells, so you get more smaller chaos bolts or shadow burns off. You see what I mean? So you can either go for the bigger bursty ones or the fast and slightly smaller ones.
And again, guys, this is totally your personal preference at this point.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a big enough difference to where you're going to be pulling a significantly less amount of DPS either way. It's literally personal preference. The only reason that I like mastery is because, again, I'm greedy and I like to see really huge numbers, and that's literally. I just like having that utility. If something needs to die, I can pop all my stuff, and I know I can do a little bit more damage at certain burst points as opposed to sustain throughout the fight. You know what I mean?
Certainly.
That's kind of the reasoning behind what I did.
The only reason you'd want to go like a particular way or the other is if you want to get really sort of min-maxy, like this is getting really deep. But it's going to be where you're going to be really utilizing those ember spending spells. So that would be something like Megara, where you're going to be using Bane of Havoc basically on cooldown. So you're going to be getting a lot more of your like ember spending spells. So it makes sense to get more mastery because they're going to hit harder and you're going to be using it every time it's up. Whereas if you're just going against a single boss, like say, like Shen, Twin Consorts even, or the Iron Khan, Genrock, haste is going to be a little slightly bit better because it's going to be, you're not worrying so much about getting big spells on two targets as often as possible. So,
Right.
But like I said, there's no wrong way to do it. You can go haste or mastery, whichever you prefer.
Right. And going into gems, and again, this is pretty much from what I've researched. Because again, the crazy part about this is we've been talking about how there's really not a right or wrong way to do it, but it's, you know what I mean. But there's really nobody who said, well, this is still kind of preferred or this is still kind of preferred. Like even what we just talked about, there's not really a guide out there that said what we just said, which I find awkward. But going into gemming, gemming again, for everything I've read and everything I've researched and seen, is obviously we want int on everything. And then obviously if it's a blue slot, we want our int hit veiled. If it's a red slot, we want our pure int. And if it's a yellow slot, we want like int and then either mastery or int and then haste. Correct?
Yeah, again, it's going to sort of follow your primary, secondary stat that we talked about, the haste or the mastery, whichever you prefer.
Right.
If you're obviously wanting to go a lot more haste, then haste is going to be more beneficial. It's actually more beneficial in some cases to just gem straight for the haste or the mastery and trying to skip int altogether until you get to sort of the higher end levels. Like I'm talking, heroic rating gear, that sort of level. That's when int is going to sort of outweigh it. But for general, just probably the best way I would suggest doing it is pick the way you're going to go. So you're going to pick either haste or mastery, and then match your gems depending on that. So if you get a red socket, you can go with int mastery or int haste gems, whichever one you're using.
Right.
Blue, purple, those are obviously going to be int hit because you want to get hit capped. But yeah, just pick whichever you're going to and gear towards that.
Right. Don't mix and match both.
Don't mix and match. No, just pick one or the other. If you're going haste, get int haste gems. If you get a yellow socket, int haste gem. If you get a red socket, int haste gem. If you get a green, that's when you're going to use that int hit gem. Or if you get a blue one, int hit as well.
So. All right. And then talents and glyphs. I know that again, this is really pretty straightforward. The level 15 talents. Most people that I've seen use dark regen. Especially now that our level 75 challenges have changed in 5.2, so we'll go over that in a little bit. But there are times where I have seen people use Harvest Life, not very often.
Yeah, it's pretty lackluster compared to the other two. Dark Regen's really nice because it gives you that on-demand hits or healing when you need it. So again, for an example for this would be like on, say, Heroic Megara when you're trying to get through those barrages or rampages, and you want that extra healing and extra healing done to you, Dark Regen will be good. But for the most part, unless you need that really sort of demand on burst healing, Soul Leech is actually going to be your best option because it's massive. Like it's a constant shield on you, and the way that it works for Destro is whenever you use an Ember spending spell, is you're going to get a part of that as an absorption shield. So you can stack it up. I mean, I've had them stacked up to well over 800k shield on me just because I take, I try to avoid as much damage as I can, and my Soul Leech continually ticking and refreshing every time I use an Ember spell, and it just builds up and builds up. And then when you get to those big damaging, abilities like the Rampage, it just does nothing to you because you've got this, big shield on you. So either one's fine. It depends. Again, with talents. For the way it's done, and obviously since they remade it, it's just pick what you need depending on what you're doing.
Right.
So.
And again, level 30 is pretty much dependent on you.
Halaterra is, you're not really going to find much of a use for that in PvE. Mortal Coil is really nice. It's a 20% heal, so it's every 45 seconds. That's really nice. I use that practically for just about every fight, unless I need to use Shadow Fury for something. So, either one of those is fine.
Level 45?
45, this is an interesting one because all three of them are really good. Soul Link works really well with Soul Leech because it's like a passive damage reduction because you share it with your minion.
Right.
My favorite by far is Sacrificial Pact because it's basically what it does is it sacrifices 20% of your minion's health to give you a shield for 400% of the amount sacrificed. So basically, it works out to be about a 400k shield every 1 minute. And I mean, that's amazing. Like, that is just... the fact that you can shield yourself for 400k damage, it's perfect for, like, on Heroic Jinrock, when you get into the Lightning Storm, you just pop that. If you hit a couple of the lightning balls, no worries, that shield's going to protect you every time. So. Right. And then, of course, you've got Dark Bargain. So your Dark Bargain is a great ability. It's basically a 50% shield wall. And what it was, it stops any damage coming into you at all, and then it calculates all the damage that you took, divides it by half, and then spreads it out as damage as a dot to you. So it makes it easier to heal through it. But you're going to negate 50% of any damage done to you in that time. So it's still a really good ability.
So again, same thing with like Heroic Megara or
exactly.
Jinrock during the Dodge the Wiggles phase.
Dodge the Wiggles, yeah. An old friend would say. But yeah, so say you get into the Rampage and you take, let's say, 800k damage, just a rough number. you got your Dark Bargain going that whole time. You're only going to take 400k of that additional damage, of that damage from the Rampage, and then it's going to spread that 400k damage as a dot for you. So it means it smooths out the damage for you, if it makes it easier for you and
so
your heal.
50k a tick for 8 seconds instead
Basically,
of
yeah.
you dead.
Instead of instead of you dead, you know. So.
Level 60, I've really not seen much outside of Unbound Will used at all.
Burning Rush is going to be your main one. Like that
really?
is going to be that's your main usable one in level 60. Blood Horror, I think, is a horrible spell. I wouldn't even go near it, even for PvP.
Okay.
Unbound Will has its usage in PvE once on Heroic Genrock, so you can get rid of the ionization. But the Burning Rush is going to be your default one there. So that's going to be basically you just get a run speed increase, but it sacrifices some of your life. So. It's basically nothing.
Right.
75, the fun talents.
Yeah. I'm going to let you handle this, Ro.
Okay, so this defines how you're going to play your playstyle, basically. As Destro, you're never going to use Grimoire of Service. It's just not viable for Destro, so don't worry about that. But then you've got two other options to go for. So you've got Grimoire of Supremacy, which is going to buff your minion damage, which in this case, if you're Destro, you're going to be using the Observer. Or you can go Grimoire of Sacrifice, which will sacrifice the pet to give you bonus damage in other spells that you do. So in this case for Destro, it's your Incinerate and your Chaos Bolts hit a bit harder. So if you're playing that Mastery build and you want really big Chaos Bolt ticks, then you want to go Grimoire of Sacrifice and a heavy Mastery build, and you'll get some really big numbers from there. So, but otherwise, like I said, either one, again, this is the same as the Haste Mastery, either one is fine. It doesn't matter really which one you play. If you're going a Haste build, I would suggest going Supremacy, because your minion will get better benefit from the Haste than going for a Sacrifice build, because he will scale off your Haste. So if you're stacking Haste, go Supremacy. If you go Mastery, go Sacrifice. If you want to go either way, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. They're both perfectly fine to use.
Okay, yeah, because I've been using, like I said, I've been using kind of that Mastery build. But from what I had read with the Observer, Mastery and Haste are pretty much equal with the Observer as long as you're using Supremacy.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's very, when I talk about, say, Haste being slightly better, I mean slightly better, like maybe 100, 200, 300 DPS increase.
Okay. So literally nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing. It's not a biggie if you want to play that way. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way, for sure.
Then level 90?
Level 90, this is fun. These are fun talents to use. Archimonde's Vengeance is basically a flat-out 5% damage buff. In a way, because it reflects 5% of the damage done to you back to the boss. So only if you take damage, you're going to do damage back. But, I mean, if you're raiding, you don't want to take damage.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not going to be going out of your way to take damage.
Right.
So it kind of fell off. And now the more two favored ones are going to be Killjading's Cunning or Manaros Fury. So if you need to do a heavy AoE fight, so again, Megara, with Heroic Megara with the ads there, Manaros Fury will help you out there. Basically increases any of your area of effect spells by 500%. So you just get a massive range on doing any sort of AoE spell. So your Rain of Fire, your Fire and Brimstone Incinerates, that sort of
so
thing.
Instead of having to worry about the 10-yard range, now you have a 50-yard range.
Basically a 50-yard range, yeah. So you can pretty much hit all three heads with Rain of Fire.
So you're hitting stuff. Like you're not gonna...
If you just aim in that general direction, you're gonna hit something, basically.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, so it depends. If you're not going to be needing a big AoE, then you're going to go to Killjading's Cunning. Allows you to cast and move at the same time. So if you're one of those people that accidentally moves forward while you're casting it, and it normally would cancel out your spell, but you don't have that problem anymore with Killjading's Cunning.
Yeah, and I've really grown lazy using this. I really have.
You try using it for a while, and then you take it off, and it'll catch you a couple of times. So, but the trade-off for being able to do that is you get reduced movement speed. Right. So you do need to be aware of that. In some places where you need to be moving forward, like it can catch you out on G-Kun with the downdraft. If you're casting and you've got 2 stacks of that, you can still be blown off. I found that out a couple of times the hard way. So.
Now, glyphs. There's not really
Glyphs, yeah,
a whole lot to worry
nah.
about for Destro. I mean, literally nothing. That's really going
There's,
to make or break your DPS.
yeah, there's nothing really there.
I like Glyph of Siphon Life personally.
Yeah, that's the only mandatory one that I play on all three specs, because that's just passive healing.
Right.
Other than that, none of the other ones are really that good. Glyph of Conflagrate's nice, but
I actually
mean,
like Healthstone as well. Like, again, it's not a big deal, but
no, Healthstone works really well, especially if you use the Dark Regeneration, that tier 1 talent.
yeah.
Because what you do is you're going to pop that Dark Regen, and then you're going to get the Glyph, the Healthstone, which basically makes it do twice as more, but as a dot. And then you've got 30% increased, how do you call it, healing over time, so hot from that Dark Regen, which makes the Healthstone even more effective. Right. So if you pop that, then the Healthstone, you're going to get tons of healing from that. So
I guess this is why I didn't do this video on my own. I would not have known that.
But other than that, yeah, the ones you can use are like the Demonic Teleport one, which just basically reduces the cooldown on it, or the Soulstone was a pretty handy one. So if you're, like in a 10-man, you need to do battle reses.
Right.
Soulstone Glyph will do well because it'll return the target with full HP instead of just, the 35%.
Now, getting into rotation, the last thing on our list here, there's the opener, and as far as I've been told, it's, make sure your curse is up, obviously. Then you're going to immolate, conflag, and then you're popping your Dark Soul, and you're popping any of your on-use stuff, and then you're slamming out 4 incinerates, and then you're spamming out Chaos Bolts, and then kind of back into the single target rotation.
Practically nailed it on the head, my man. It's a priority system. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that your Curse of Elements is up, or there is a Curse of Elements up on the boss at all times. That's a flat 5% damage increase for you. So, it's a pretty big loss to not have it on. Immolate needs to be kept up. It's it's not a great damage source, but you keep it up, it's going to be a significant amount. And then so your main spammable ability we'll go with is your Incinerate. So this is the one that's going to help you generate embers. And as you know, embers are what's used to cast those big Chaos Bolts for you.
Right.
And ideally what you want to do, so there's no real perfect time to use them, your Chaos Bolts, but you want to use them when you have buffs going. So like you've got a Trinket proc, you've got a potion going, or one of your professions of proc, or something like that. That way you're maximizing the most that you get out of them. Mm-hmm. However, in saying that, you don't ever want to max on embers. So you don't want to build embers and be waiting for something to proc and then be full of embers and not be able to generate anything else. It's better to use, like let's call it a low Chaos Bolt, where it's not buffed, and instead of being ember capped. So
Right. So you never want to be and guys, when he's saying that, no matter what you're using to track this, what he's saying is you get these 4 embers, and you don't want to ever have all 4 of them full while you're still casting other spells. And the reason that he's saying that is because what a lot of people will do is try to save up as many Chaos Bolts as they can, and then when their stuff procs and God comes down, they just blow them all out. What he's saying is you never want to cap. So even if you're going to cap, throw one out, because you're going to generate embers quick enough again to where you're still going to, you don't want to lose that ember regen, because that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest way to keep your DPS high, is to constantly be generating embers. No matter what you're doing, you want your embers to be generating. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, that's pretty much exactly how it is. So.
And then going into cleave damage. Well, actually, I guess we should kind of go into that. So after the opener, then the biggest thing is your priority system would be, keep Immolate on, keep Rain of Fire on, backdraft. You know what I mean? Like, you're using your backdraft.
So basically you want to keep your Rain of Fire down, even though it is an AoE ability. The fact that it generates embers, it makes it a slight single target DPS increase for you. So you want to keep the Rain of Fire ticking on the boss. And as a Destro Warlock, it's not a channeled spell like for other specs. You just cast it and forget it, and it ticks for like 6 seconds. So you make sure you do that. And then, just build up embers using your Incinerate as your filler spell. And then when you get a Trinket proc, use the Chaos Bolt. When you get a couple of Trinket procs, use the Chaos Bolts until the boss gets to 20%. And then when the boss gets to 20%, all you're going to do then is just replace your Chaos Bolt with your Shadow Burn. Okay, so you just use a Shadow Burn, which does a lot more damage. Trust me, that thing hits.
But the thing with Shadow Burn too is there's no cast time on it. So
It's
again,
instant.
with the saving up things, is especially with those, you want to try to, you know what I mean? If you need to burn one, burn one. But when you get your procs, I mean, you're spamming it because it's just hitting like an absolute truck.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you get on to a really fun way to do it is on like hard on, when you guys know with him when you get 200% increased damage, when he gets to 20% and you're playing Destro and you get trinkets and stuff proc, ooh. Oh yeah, that's fun. I mean, I've hit like 3 million, 4 million Shadow Burns on that guy. I mean, that is so much fun. So, you know, from one spell, so yeah, just when you get to 20%, replace Chaos Bolt with Shadow Burn. Easy peasy.
Yeah, and guys, you're gonna, and this is kind of going into it. The only other, we're gonna go over AOE and then kind of but first I want to talk about the one cleave mechanic that we have before we get into full-blown AOE. And the cleave mechanic is Bane of Havoc. And what this does is you get 3 spells that you can do to another target, or 1 Chaos Bolt.
Correct.
Essentially, yeah? Is there any, like, big thing to go into on that, or?
I mean, no, that pretty much covers it. Basically, what it does is you put like the Havoc on another enemy, and then it will mirror 3 abilities, so Immolate, Incinerate, Shadow Burn, from your main target onto that target that has the Havoc on it.
Okay.
Or if you decide to use the Chaos Bolt for it, you're actually going to send 2 Chaos Bolts instead of 1. So again, if you're going for a heavy Mastery build, this is where I was saying where if you're going to be doing a lot of Havoc on cooldown, then this is where Mastery is going to play in a bit more, because you're going to be sending 2 massive Chaos Bolts every time that Havoc comes out.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. That's basically the way it is. Just keep it on cooldown. If you can use it, abuse it, find ways to abuse it, because it's an amazing spell.
Right. And then going into the full AoE rotation, I really feel like this was just, like, this is the worst AoE I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's clunky. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but it's very clunky. So the way it works, guys, is you have an ability called Fire and Brimstone. And what it does is it costs 1 Ember, and then it'll modify all your single targets to be an AoE, except obviously Shadow Burn and Chaos Bolt. So what you'll do is you'll find a target sort of in the middle, and then you're going to hit your Fire and Brimstone, and then you're going to hit Immolate, and then it's going to immolate all the mobs around it within 10 yards, okay? And then if you do it again, you're going to hit your Ember, so you're going to get your Fire and Brimstone again, and then you're going to cast your Incinerate, and it's going to hit all those mobs with Incinerate, not just the one. So it is fun, but it is clunky because you got to use one button to use another ability. So it's kind of...
especially like for me, because I use a Naga, it's extremely annoying for me.
Yeah.
Because like I have it like I'm constantly pressing 6, 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 3, 6, 3. You know what I mean? Like it's so.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you can macro them in together, but when you're raiding, and what you want them to be doing is spamming your ability so that you can get it. You know, obviously for the most DPS, you spam your button so that it can go off as soon as it can go off. But if you have it macroed together to use both the spells, a lot of the time it wouldn't recognize the Fire and Brimstone straight away, and you'll just cast a single target version of it. Yeah, so it's you're wasting a GCD on that, so that's not cool. So it's there's some talk that they're going to change it to make it easier for us. So it's just going to be one ability, like it's going to be the modified Brimstone Immolate, which is, I think, better in a way, but it's going to be an extra button to put somewhere. You know what I mean? So. Right. But other than that, it's just keep the Immolate up on all the targets, keep the Rain of Fire down, and then just spam your Incinerate and Conflagrates on them.
Yep. And then really though, guys, Destro, and I hate to make end on a bad point because it's a really, really good spec. It's just completely, I think it's designed, Warlocks in general are designed extremely well. They're good. They're good on demand. They can be extremely strong on demand with the way that you gem. And they can be really good sustained. It's such a raid utility spec. It's just completely well done. But Akky, is there anything else you want to add on Destro?
just touching over like sort of the Warlock in general is, you know, people are going to love you because you're going to bring cookies, you're going to bring a soul stone, you're going to bring the giant TV to the raid, aka the teleport stone. So it's you're going to be a loved class. So.
All right, guys. If again, this is going to be the footage that you'll have in the background is again just kind of me going through one of the LFR fights. Again, I just hit 90, so don't worry about my numbers too bad. But what you'll see is we went through everything for you. I hope this video helped you, kind of taught you the basics of ins and outs if you want to get into playing a Destro Warlock. The only update for 5.3 that I've seen is I've heard rumors that they're going to take out the Rain of Fire, putting that in the single target rotation. I've heard rumors of that. I have not heard for sure. So we'll see once 5.3 hits, but this will definitely get you guys going into 5.2 and into 5.3, and I hope you enjoy it.